our speaker, Julie Brain Lady Anderson. We're very excited to have her. Julie is one of the nation's top experts on the brain-personality connection and creator of the most comprehensive personality assessment tool available on the market today, the Brain-Personality Connection Assessment. She is a highly sought-after international public speaker, corporate keynote, business communication relationship consultant, and international best-selling author. For more than 17 years, she has been using neuroscience and neuropsychology to ignite corporate leaders and teams to fire up their brains. The information she shares will assist listeners to accelerate their success. Her background includes natural health, psychology, human resource development, leadership development, that's a big word here, Julie, psychoneuroimmunology, courses in depression, anxiety disorders, and brain function, personality types, stress management, and the brain-personality connection. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Julie.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here with everybody. How's everybody feeling?
Great.
You doing good? I'm doing great. I am doing great. We are here to explore the topic of leadership. And we're going to do this from a neuroscience perspective, as well as a little bit of neuropsychology. We're going to kind of cover a lot of those things that affect leaders and organizations. But I always like starting off with asking, who could use a little bit more brain power about this time of the day? Is your brain dragging a little bit? Okay, heads up. There's your brain. Want a brain? You can have a brain. Anybody else want a brain? Okay, we've got some. There's a close one. Let's see if we can get ones in the back. All right. There we go. Anybody else need a brain? All right. I don't know. These brains kind of have a mind of their own because they're not perfectly cylindrical, right? And so when they bounce, they kind of go all over the place. Anyways, it's kind of a fun way to start the presentation. I like doing that because I just did two things. I engaged your brain. I got it curious. What's she gonna do? What's flying at me? Is it gonna hurt, right? Your brain just went through a lot of emotions and it perked up. And it also, because they're the shape of the brain, you know your brain knows, hey, she's gonna be talking about me, right? So they're fun. We have plenty of stress balls back there so you can pick some up if you want to before you go. So again, we are gonna talk about the neuroscience with some neuropsychology about the brain and how the brain decides really what we are going to do, what we're going to accomplish, and a lot of what our personality is. And when you are in a leadership position, it's really important that you understand this, not just so that you yourself can succeed to the best of your ability, but also so the people you're leading, you have great communication with, and you can help them to succeed to the best of their ability. John Rady is one of the neuroscientists that I follow, that I love reading some of his white papers and books. He says a better understanding of how the brain works will give us a better way to get a handle on who we are. So literally understanding the functioning of the brain helps us to have greater success in our life and in our careers. There's a lot of benefits that come from understanding the brain-personality connection as well as the neuroscience and neuropsychology of what makes the brain work. It gives you a better understanding of human nature, right? Why do people do what they do? Why do I do what I do? Why do some things come easy and some things come difficult? All of that has to do with the wiring in your brain. It also helps you to better inspire other people, better help them to achieve their very best, because you know what's going on in their brain. And it really helps you to develop better leadership skills. I like using the acronym of BRAIN. We're going to play around with that a little bit as we go through the first half of the presentation. And we're going to start off with that brain-personality connection. Now, I hope you stretch your fingers out because we're going to be going really fast. There's a lot of information on here. I'm happy that it's being recorded, so you can all watch it a second time. All right? But we're going to start off with exploring that brain-personality connection. The brain-personality connection is comprised of 5 main facets. Right? Now the first 4 that are listed here, your introversion extroversion level, your brain quadrant dominance, your sensory modality, and your introversion extrovert, or your brain gender, I should say, those are what we call DNA coded. Right? This is when you start to develop in vitro, this is coded just like the color of your eyes, the color of your hair. The 5th one is what I call the can of worms. That's who raised you, how you were raised. Now obviously this is a lot of information, so we're only going to cover 2 of these facets that I feel are the most important in leadership. We're not going to get so much into the other ones, all right? Richard Hare is one of my absolute favorites. He did a lot of study out of Stanford University in California. And he says, according to his scans, most brains are believed to have an innate, this is your DNA code, energy expenditure in one of the 4 cerebral divisions. So when you're looking at the brain, I have my little model here, we have 2 main ones on the right and 2 main ones on the left. Right? And according to what he found, is that each individual appears to have the gift to use less oxygen, less glucose, less micronutrition in one of those 4 quadrants. And it actually bounces back faster. It has the communication across the synaptic gap is about 3 times, almost 3 times as fast as in the other 3 quadrants. It's generally about 150 miles per hour from neuron to neuron. In your preferred quadrant, it's been mapped at 400 to 450 miles per hour. So it's much easier for you to work out of this main quadrant. And a really good way to illustrate this is by having you do an exercise with me. So take your hands, fold them like so. Some of you have the left thumb on top like me. Some of you have the right thumb on top. Those who have the left thumb on top, raise your hand. Well, that's awesome. You're all good to go. Those who have the right thumb on top, can I talk to you privately later? I'm just teasing. It's no better, worse sign of intelligence or anything like that. It's just the way your brain told your hands to automatically fold. Now fold your arms is another way to explain it, right? Some have the right arm on top, some have the left. Now try to do it the opposite without hitting the person next to you, right? This is really important, right? There's a way that you just don't have to think about it. It's just coded in your DNA. This is your lead hand, your lead arm. Pay attention next time you climb stairs. Normally, you'll always start off with the same leg, unless there's something in your way. This is what is coded in your DNA. But when you tried to do it the opposite, it wasn't as easy, right? How did that feel? Awkward, uncomfortable. You see, it took more thought. Every single bit of thought takes extra oxygen, micronutrition, and glucose. So if you're constantly spending your time working outside of where your natural brain wiring DNA code is, you're spending a lot of extra energy. So you automatically, your brain automatically does this. It automatically goes with what's coded in its DNA. And this is what has a major effect on our personalities. So when we talk about those 4 quadrants in the brain, we're going to start with the introversion, extroversion. When we talk about introversion, extroversion, who can give me an explanation of what they feel introverts are? Yes?
Just socially, it takes longer to recover socially.
Absolutely, absolutely. Anybody else? Yeah?
Gain energy from alone time.
Gaining energy from alone time? Did I see a hand over here? All right, you're absolutely right. And the reason for that is structural to their brain. Has to do with the reticular activating system. And it actually sets the external volume control in the brain. So that is why introverts are more internal thinkers and extroverts are more external thinkers. And then you have ambiverts that are right down the middle. And we'll talk a little bit more about those. We're just going to go with the introverts first. Second, their brain takes in a lot of data. It's naturally self-sufficient. It's wide awake. So when they go through life, it's as if they're taking pictures with a big wide-angle lens. So they go into a high stimulus situation, they take 1 or 2 pictures, and then they're done. Because now they can spend the rest of their day internal, picking apart all that data that they just took in those big pictures. They do not need a lot of external stimulus, and for this reason, because of the way their brain is coded, right, they are always going to seek out quiet spots. And I'm going to explain why this is so important in just a minute when we talk about leadership skills and how this applies to your leadership. This was a cute little cartoon that I had someone sketch for me at the beginning of COVID. If you notice the timeline, week 1, quarantine, okay, no problem. I don't have to be around a lot of people. Love being alone, love being able to work from home, a new book to start on week 3. Quarantine's been lifted. No! Right? Now, granted, this entire situation has gone on a lot longer than what any of us anticipated. So even the introverts are suffering without that emotional support. But it just kind of, you know, some introverts can really, they're like, oh, I can work from home. I'm good. I'm good. Extreme extroversion. Oh, I need to fix that typo. Now, their brain is naturally very sleepy. Very sleepy. They are constantly seeking out situations that will provide them with that extra stimulus. So it's as if they walk through life taking pictures with a little tiny telephoto, not a wide angle. Did I say wide angle earlier, or did I say telephoto? I said wide angle, okay. So for the extroverts, they're doing the telephoto. So they have to constantly go around. They're snapping pictures so that their brain stays awake. So they're going to lean towards those situations. And you're going to notice this in your company, right? The extroverts are the ones that can't sit at their desk by themselves for too terribly long before they have to get up and move, because their brain is naturally sleepy. And if they don't get this stimulus, it's going to fall asleep. So they're constantly seeking out that extra stimulus. I had my cartoonist do this. Notice the timeline on this. Day 1, 9 o'clock. Quarantine like alone? Really? He actually said he drew this of me. Noon, I've done everything I can around the house, and it's only noon. 3 o'clock, I've texted everybody in my phone. Let me out at 6 by 6. Like, the extroverts had a really hard time, right? Because they just need the extra stimulus. How many of you have heard of an ambivert? All right, a few. A lot of people will come up to me after this presentation when I do this, and they'll say, I have a label finally, right? Because the ambiverts can flow between either way. If you look at the time of hours in a day, the introvert needs most of that time internal. The extrovert needs most of that time external. The ambiverts can play in either field. If they're in a highly extroverted situation today, then you know what? Tomorrow they might want to be alone. Right? They can handle the big conference with the exhibit hall, and they can do all that for a couple of days. But then the next few days, they want their downtime. That's an ambivert. So if you're one of those that say, well, sometimes I relate to this and sometimes I relate to that, you're most likely an ambivert. And in actuality, according to statistics, about 40% of the population are in this particular category. So you're not alone. So when you're dealing with the introverts and the ambiverts, keep this in mind, right? As leaders, it's important that you understand what's going on in their brain. High stress situations will shut down. We're going to talk about the amygdala in a little bit. Will shut down the brain instantly. So if you put an introvert on the spot, that's why I will ask for volunteers. I will never choose somebody from my audience, because I don't know if they're an introvert or an extrovert. And if I pick the introvert, it's going to kill them, right? So you've got to think about this. Allow them the space, allow them the time to internally process, and don't put them on the spot, or be cautious of putting them on the spot, because that's going to overwhelm their brain. The extroverts, try to be understanding of them. They're going to have a lot of extra energy. So if they're driving their coworkers crazy, think about where can we place them, physically place them in the office that's going to give them the extra stimulus? Where can we physically place the introverts where it's not going to overrun them? Like, it may literally mean moving the cubicles in order to honor the introvert and be understanding of the extrovert. Can I give the extrovert the extra tasks that literally means they're going to get up physically and walk somewhere? Because that's going to help to keep their brain awake, alert, and alive, and when it is, they're going to be so much more productive. So much more productive. Now we're going to go on to the brain quadrant dominance. This is those 4 quadrants. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about and I'm going to describe the tasks that take place in that quadrant of the brain. So the reason why individuals have some of their personality traits the way they do is because of the fact that they are spending up to 1/100th the amount of energy to work out of that quadrant. That's where they fold their hands. So it naturally flows into their personality, and you see it in their interaction and the way that they work with other people. Sometimes it can cause conflicts, but once you have this information as HR professionals, leaders in your organization, you're going to now have an ace up your sleeve on how to better deal with them or deal with the situations to calm it and reduce conflict and help them work better on a team. So when we talk about the front left, we're going to start at the left, the front left. When we talk about the front left quadrant of the brain, this is the area of the brain where all of your logical, inductive, deductive reasoning takes place. Just going to go ahead and move all these up. This is where, one more I think, this is where if you are telling somebody what to do, you're using this portion of the brain, right? If you are doing a lot of fact-based problem solving, facts in, facts out, you're using this portion of the brain. This is a very non-emotional section of the brain. It's pretty much your least emotional personality. They are competitive because in brain scans they have identified the home of competition is right here in the front left portion of the brain. So if this is where they fold their hands, they're going to be naturally very competitive. Now, if you have an introvert that is a boss, BQD or brain quadrant dominance, they're not going to always appear very competitive because that might be too much stimulus. They're going to be quietly competitive. They're going to be the chess masters, right? They're going to be the ones that set those goals and they achieve those goals, but they're not necessarily going to stand up in the room and sound off, this is my goal for the year, and this is what, but that's not an introvert. But they may have that personality of competition because they are the front left, the boss quadrant. I gave the boss the red triangle, and I gave them this because of the fact that red, this is a very strong personality, and red it subconsciously, psychologically, it says power in your brain. And a triangle because sometimes their personality can be a little bit prickly. I use the example of my sister. There's so many family stories. It's kind of like a comedian. You know, they have this list, and most of what they joke about happens to be their their family. Well, my sister, I'm one of 5 daughters. My sister that's in between me, I'm the middle one, although I was the baby, birth order, that's a whole nother presentation. We were out having dinner, or having lunch, shopping a few years back, probably more like 10 years, and I've got her and my niece, and Chris and I are joking about the clothing styles. And I said to her, I'm like, you know what, if I just lost 50 pounds, I could pull all those clothes I have stored underneath my bed out, I could wear them because they're back in style, like they were in 1982, and you know what? No one would be the wiser and I wouldn't have to spend a penny. My boss sister looked straight at me. She goes, Julie, get rid of the clothes. You're wasting space. You're never going to lose the weight. Well, you can just imagine I wanted to go straight for her jugular. However, understanding the brain-personality connection saved her from a trip to the ER and me from a night in jail, right? Because I instantly stopped and said, inductive, deductive reasoning. Ladies and gentlemen, I have delivered 3 children in my life. My youngest child, who is now 28 years old, was 9 pounds, 14 ounces, 22.5 inches long. For the gentleman in the room, that's really big. These hips will never be the same as they were in 1982, right? They got stretched out just a little bit. Right? So from my sister's perspective, there was nothing mean. She was not trying to hurt my feelings. She was not trying to destroy my ego. She was just facts in, facts out. Now you might be recognizing some of these people in your organization. And now you're like, ah, oh, I know why they do this. It's coded in their DNA. It's not necessarily a bad personality trait. It is the way they fold their hands. It is where they spend the least amount of energy. So now keep this in mind when you are interacting with them, right? I say gently lead them to your idea. They like being the boss. They like being the one that makes the decision because that's their gift. So if you can, come up with a couple of options, 2 or 3 options that work great for you and your team. And you really don't care which one. Let them decide. It's going to make them feel so good. So good, right? They want the proof. How is this going to help me reach my goals? How is this going to help me be more financially, more fiscally profitable? They're all about that, the data. They don't want to dig for the data. They want somebody else to provide them with the data. And then they make the decision. That's your boss, right? So keep these in mind. Keep these in mind because it really is going to help with your interaction. And if you just kind of step and take a deep breath when you have these interactions and go, boss, data, facts, right? It'll help you. It'll help you. It'll also help you as if there's anyone in the room who deals with hiring, right? It's going to help you go, okay, wait a minute. This person is going to fit better in this job, but it's not going to fit as good in this job. All right, we're going to move to the back left portion of the brain. These are what I call my master coordinators. The reason why they're master coordinators is because this is where, in your brain, all of the details are housed. All of them. This is where the Renwicki's area of the brain is housed. Renwicki's area has to do with language, understanding language. It has to do with spelling, right? All spelling is a sequence. She's like, no, that's not me, not me. If it weren't for spell check, right? But then spell check can get you in trouble too if you don't give it at least something to go on. But this is where that's all housed in the brain, right? CAT spells cat. It's just facts. It's just filed. It's just the way it is. So they're very gifted at everything detailed. Detailed fact-based memory banks are here. They love doing things by the book, sequence, right? If you have a position or you have a job that needs that detailed tracking, the data entry, the making sure that every single detail on the calendar gets done adequately, tracking the time, tracking the money, great CFOs. You want a master coordinator because this is where they fold their hands, right? And if you can put the right person in the right position, think of how great that's going to be in your company. If you're interacting with a master coordinator and you're going, okay, I need to give them a report, but I really don't have the time to do a lot, so I'm just going to give them an overview. They want the details, right? So it helps you to understand. They're all about schedules, very time conscious, because this is where time and money's tracked. So they're always punctual, always on time. If you want to be sarcastic and mess with them, just be 5 minutes late. No, I'm teasing. You did not hear that from me. Okay, communication with them. It's all about the status quo, the track record, the productivity. They're all about productivity, right? They're all about those details. Okay, so this is what you want to keep in picture. Avoid giving them the big picture. They're not going to be happy if you just paint the big picture for them. They want those details. All right, we're going to jump over to the right side of the brain now. Something that's very interesting about the right side of the brain is when you look at the brain, down here underneath the cerebellum, or the cerebrum, right, is the limbic system. The limbic system is the home of emotion, and it processes, this is down where the amygdala is, right? We're going to talk about that in a little bit. Right-brainers have many more neural connections to the limbic system, to the home of emotion, than left-brainers do. So this is why, if you're dealing with a right-brainer, someone who's DNA coded to fold their hands on the right side of the brain, they are going to tend to feel, display, speak with more emotion. And the nurture, the back right, is the one that shows the most emotion, right? So you have to keep this in mind. This is where all of your peacekeeping, your harmonizing, your connecting everything to everything. This is the home of music. So if any of us are attached to a PET scan and they're watching our brain as we're listening to music, this is going to be the primary section of the brain that's going to light up. Now, all of it, if you've had musical training, you're going to have other portions that are also active. But in general, this is the most active when you're listening to music. So the nurturers, they're the ones that it's just natural in their brain. They're the ones that can pick up an instrument and just start playing, right? Or they can pick out notes real easy. Definitely not me. Tried to learn a guitar. Still can't do it. But my youngest son, the one that was the moose, he's a nurturer. He from the beginning, very young age, was playing the piano, playing the guitar with very little training because he could just hear it. He could feel it. So now that shows in their personality. Literally, they might have more emotional speech. When you're talking to them about situations, again, I'm not sure about what everybody's position is in your company that's in the room, but if you're dealing with conflict resolution, they're going to be all about the emotion, right? It's going to be all about how will this person hurt my feelings? You know, this person's always talking smack. I don't like it. What am I supposed to do? They don't like me. If this is what you're dealing with, you might be dealing with a nurturer, and you have to take that breath and go, okay, wait a minute. They're a nurturer, so for them, they're wired that way, right? They're wired that way. These are the things that work in their brain. I give them the green circle because for them, circle, everything is connected. By the way, I missed the shape and color of the master coordinator. Blue square. Blue square because everything is neatly boxed and organized. Blue because in the brain, blue is calming. So I know if I hand something off to a master coordinator, they're going to organize it and they're going to take care of it for me. Same with the green. It's a calming, it's connected to nature. When any of us are having spiritual experiences or we are connecting with nature, this is primarily the section of the brain that's going to light up. So that is why it's a green color, because it's connected to nature and calming. And this is where the home is. So they're very connected to animals and to nature and to people. And that's why they're the circle, because everything is connected to everything in their life. It's very difficult for the nurturers to compartmentalize work and home. Right? They normally merge the two, and will continue to be thinking about that when they're at home, just because that's the way their brain works. All right. For them, it's all about the harmony. It's all about being part of the team, right? You need to make them feel that doing this task is part of the team. Doing this task is going to help everybody out, because that's what's important to them. Validate that need. You'll get a long way with them. Now, what's really interesting is, remember how when I told you to fold your hands or your arms opposite of what you naturally did? In the brain, neural connections run front to back, left to right. They do not run diagonally. So what do you think is going to be the most challenging personality for the nurturer? Diagonally opposite, front left, the boss. Exactly. Exactly. And who's going to be the most difficult to deal with for the boss? The nurturer. So having this information in your back pocket, if you're a boss and you're dealing with a nurturer, you can take that deep breath, engage your prefrontal cortex, and go, okay, this is what I need to do to help them. Because it's not just about you all the time, right? It's about how do we make that connection? Because at the end of the day, if you're making that connection, if you're lifting somebody else, it's going to benefit you, because work's going to be smoother. Things are going to go better, right? Now we're going to go to the last of the 4 quadrants. This is the front right section of the brain. This portion of the brain is the innovator brain quadrant dominance. The innovator this is where all of your out-of-the-box thinking takes place. This is where all of your visionary, Leonardo da Vinci, right? People that just thought way outside of the box were way ahead of their time, right? That is the innovator. They love change. Their brain's always out here, not here or here. It's always forward thinking. They do not like the details. Why? Where are the details housed? Back left portion of the brain. So they're all about the big picture. If a master coordinator comes up to them with all the details, they're gonna have a hard time with it. This is where all of your brainstorming and out-of-the-box thinking takes place. So for people who spend 1/100th the amount of energy here, they are gifted at that. Interestingly enough, it has also been scanned as being the home of entrepreneurialism and the home of sarcasm. So if you know a highly naturally sarcastic person, chances are they are wired in their DNA to be so, because they are the innovator. It is also the home of entrepreneurialism, so lots of entrepreneurs. So how do you incorporate that and understand that and communicate well with that? Give them the big picture. They're all about the big picture. You know, give them too much details, you will lose them almost instantly. Validate and be appreciative of their need to do things differently. You got a problem that you don't have all the puzzle pieces, put an innovator on it. Put 2 or 3 innovators on it. I guarantee they'll come up with a very creative way to fix it, and it'll work, right? They just won't want to have to do the details, because that's when you pull in the master coordinator to take care of all those details. They'll figure out the problem, but then you have to have somebody else do it, all right? Okay, so I like throwing in cartoons. All right, we're gonna introduce you to Ethel here. She says, we need to know your parents' income, your expected summer earnings, your total earnings since the age of 2, the average income of all your first cousins, your father's barber's total assets, 17 forms of ID, and 131 personal references. Possible brain quadrant dominance of Ethel? Master coordinator, she's tracking. It doesn't matter to her whether it makes sense or doesn't make sense. She's just following the sequence, doing the job. All right, so while you were sleeping, I talked to the doctors and he worked it out so you can still keep building the deck when you get home. Non-emotional, goal-oriented. Who's the wife? What's her quadrant dominance? Boss. Very red triangle-ish, right? I just need this done. I want it done now. This is one of my favorite. I wish I would have thought of doing this when I had my kids. The maternity nurse let me borrow the other 8. I just want to see the look on my mom's face when she walks in the door. Probable brain quadrant dominance? Innovator. Yep, innovator. All right, so here is an at-a-glance slide. If you want to take a picture of this real quick. Just a recap. And then we're going to have some fun. Wait for the cameras to go down. Got it? Everybody got it? Okay. All right. Let's have some fun. Let's see what the room's comprised of. We have paper sheets for a test. Becca's going to hand those out to you if you want to take it on paper, or you can go to the website. There you don't have to put in your information. You can just go to yourbestmindllc.com, and then you can take the DNA brain strength. It's under assessments, the assessments tab, I think. Or, like I said, Becca has the handout that you can take. The handout has a little bit of additional information on it, right? So if you want to take that, and I am going to give you guys exactly 2 minutes. No, I'm not a master coordinator. But I have to watch my time anyways, or else I get in trouble. Yeah, it's the DNA, it's the brain strength quiz, yeah. There's just 7 questions in there. Now, mind you, this is a 7-question assessment. My actual brain personality connection or brain power connection assessment has like 14 pages to it. It's very intense. This is just for the fun, because we're going to do an exercise real quick afterwards. As you're taking it, keep in mind, this is about what comes naturally to you, not what you have been trained to do. In the brain, there is a huge difference between what you do well and what you do easy. Right? You can go to college, you can take courses, you can come to workshops like this, and you can learn how to do something really, really well, but that doesn't mean it's easy for you in terms of energy expended in your brain. Got about 30 seconds. All right, we're going to have some fun. We're going to have some fun. Let's everybody stand up. We're going to stretch for a minute. You can leave your stuff on the chair if you want. We're going to pretend that this room is a brain. For those of you who scored highest in section 1, I want you to come up here by the screen. You are the red triangles. For those who scored highest in section 2, those are the blue squares. Please go back by Rebecca. For those of you who scored highest in section 3, I do believe that is up here in the front right section of the brain. Those are our purple, you got a tie, I'll tell you in a minute. So those are the purple imagination bubbles, our innovators. Those of you who scored highest in the section 4, you would be the green circles, and you're back in the back right portion of the brain. All right. For those of you who scored highest in more than one, all right, are you firstborn?
Yes.
Are you first of gender? No. Okay. So firstborns, the reason why I asked that question is firstborns tend to have the most put on them, and so they wind up brain energy dead. Doesn't it though, right? Literally, because they've spent most of their life spending way too much energy, not living natural to what their brain quadrant is. So what I always ask people when they get stuck is, which is your ick quadrant? In other words, out of the 4, think again, not what you're skilled at, but what takes the most brain energy. You may be able to do it really well. 2, so you want to go. So 2 is master coordinator, you are innovator. Most likely. And you? 4?
Yeah.
4, so you just very well could be a boss. All right, so I wanted you to take a look at the room, and I want you to imagine this in your workplace, right? So if you are the innovators, right, you've got to really think, these over here, the master coordinators, they are your new best friends. You know why? Despite the fact that you may not understand the way their brain works, they're going to take care of all of those yucky details that you really hate, right? And for you, when you're taking care of those details and you get so super frustrated with the innovator, take a deep breath and go, oh, it's the way their brain works. It's the way their brain works. Give them a list and let them fill it in. Because if you don't give them a list and you just tell them, it's gone. Yep. Right? And when you deliver the information to them and you type up that beautiful 10-page report with all of those great details on it that you know they need, they're going to put it in their trash bucket, right? Give them 1-page summary.
Or lose it.
Or lose it because it's a detail. Now for you red triangles, there are a lot of tasks that you need to do in business, in corporations, right? And sometimes those tasks are warm, fuzzy tasks. They're bringing people together. So guess who's your new best friend? Your green circles. Because all those tasks, all that warm, fuzzy stuff, they love to do. So work with them. See how even though it's the diagonally opposite personality, they can become your best friends because they're going to do the stuff you don't like. Okay, everybody can sit back down. Was that fun? Did it kind of help you to visualize what we got going on? You know, I didn't do a count based on time. It depends on the groups. It depends on the groups. I do presentations for Vistage, which is almost always upper level management CEOs. I got a ton of these, and very few of those. Right? When I'm working with entrepreneurs, yep. So just kind of, this was pretty even for this. It was very well represented of the 4 quadrants. So remember, this is the hardest thing for any of us to do because human nature is to think about us. We just do it. We automatically communicate how our brain folds its hands. But when you are having personality connections with other people, you've got to think receiver, not sender. So here's another good one to take a picture of. This is just a recap of that, how do you best communicate with the 4 quadrants. Okay, it's a great one to just keep up your sleeve. When you're at work, you're dealing with one of those people that you fit in on that first slide that gave you the 4 quadrants. You can put this one right next to it and go, okay, how do I communicate? Right, see how it works. All right, we are going to quickly go through the psychology. This was the DNA code, right? Now in leadership, we need to talk about the rest of the word brain. And we're going to do the R and the A together. You need to be approachable, and you need to be responsive. Lots of interesting figures. I'm just going to throw these up fairly quickly. Surveys, stress in the workplace. Now, I'm not saying that stress in the workplace is always coming from poor leadership. I'm saying that according to a lot of these statistics, there's a lot of work that is missed. Could it be because the brain is stressed? And as leaders, it trickles down. So how are you leading? Based on what you just learned and some additional information that we're going to cover. Look at the bottom one. I was really, really surprised by this. That work-related stress, they have found, caused 120,000 deaths per year. That's crazy. It's a crazy figure. It really surprised me. Here's some more. Right? The money that is lost when you're looking, if you are the boss or you are the master coordinator and you're tracking all of the figures and you're thinking, you know, what's this costing me? How can I fix this? How can I reduce the stress? Because you're the leader. It's your responsibility, right? What is that saying? With great power comes great responsibility. Right? Lots of money is lost due to treatment costs, right? Days lost, absenteeism, $3.5 million annually, millions of dollars, 550 million working days lost in the US from absenteeism that is stress related. Now obviously 100% of the stress that a person's experiencing is not always from work, right? But what can you provide? What can you do as leaders? Right, the first thing is paying attention to the brain-personality connection. Am I stressing somebody out because I'm not connecting with them and their brain? Right? These were very interesting too. I like the last one I felt was interesting. 80% of workers in the US were stressed as a result of ineffective company communication or poor communication by their employers. Right? So even if you're not the top brass, you're still that go-between that can help in this area, right? Because a brain that is stressed simply cannot think. And the reason why it cannot think is because of what goes on in the brain when it's under stress. So I'm going to introduce you to this little section of the brain called the amygdala. Not very big, huh? Let me tell you, when it hijacks, when it takes over, it's a mess. And it takes over when there is stress. What started me on this journey many, many years ago was the study of psychoneuroimmunology. That's that big word, right? Which very simply just means the connection between what you think in your mind affects the neurochemistry in your brain, and then in turn causes a reaction in the immune system. So a brain that is stressed cannot function at its peak or deal with the challenges. And the reason why it can't is because the prefrontal cortex, the PFC, which is right here, it is responsible for all of our higher thinking. It is responsible for problem solving, for seeing our ways, understanding our consequences of actions, right? for just thinking, reasoning. It all takes place up here. When the amygdala takes over, its job is to get you from point A of danger to point B of safety. So if you went out and you ate dinner and it was a beautiful night, you loved the restaurant, you were there until closing, you walk out, the manager locks the door behind you, but it was real busy, so you had to park really far from the restaurant. So you, as you're walking, right, your brain notices, your sensory organs kick in, and it notices a figure walking toward you. Instantly, in a nanosecond, your amygdala goes, I'm taking over. I need to get this body, this person, because it's my job to protect it, from point A of danger to point B of safety. When it does that, it shuts down the non-life essential systems in the body. Your immune system, your digestive system, because guess what? If I die in the next 2 minutes, it doesn't matter if my food's digested, and it doesn't matter if I'm sick. It shuts it down. It also shuts down the prefrontal cortex, and it does this because it sucks all the available energy, all the available oxygen to reroute to the rest of the body, because it now opens up the lungs, increases the blood pressure, increases the heart rate, so that I can move really fast from point A of danger to point B of safety. Now, it will do this whether it's a real situation or it is a perceived situation. So if the nurturers think the person in the cubicle next to them hates them, their amygdala is constantly on override. If the employees are worried that they're not being communicated with, they're not engaged, that kind of thing, they can be overly stressed, their amygdala takes over. This can happen on a daily basis to each and every one of us. And when it does it, shuts down the prefrontal cortex, we can't think. We don't do our best work. Our immune system starts to dive. So we get sick more often, we miss more days of work. Make sense? Right? So what we have to do is we have to think as leaders, what am I doing as a leader to make my team feel comfortable? Right? We have to be approachable. We have to be responsive. We have to be open to them. When they come in and talk to us, if we're like, yeah, what do you want? What's their amygdala going to do? They're instantly going to go, oh, this is an uncomfortable situation. Right? We have to be kind. We have to be open and approachable so that and then we have to respond in a positive way. It's a good point. Let's see if we can work on that. Right? Okay. The I is interested. So I'm going to pop up real quick. Lots of different figures on, on employees that are disengaged. I know it's kind of an old topic. It's been talked about for decades. But let's face it, there's a lot of validity in it. Right? Employees that are not engaged. Right? Again, lots of work being lost. Pre-COVID, 67%. Now, only about 20% feel they're engaged. For obvious reasons, but as leaders, what can we do? Right? What can we do to show interest in them? And sometimes it's just a matter of taking a minute, texting, saying, how you doing? Seeing them in the office, saying, how you doing? Good to see you. You look really good today. Love the lipstick color. Right? That's all it takes sometimes. It's just acknowledgement. Right? More figures. Look at what happens when you do engage. 20% higher productivity, 21% higher productivity, 41% reduction in absenteeism, right? 4.6 times more likely to feel empowered to perform their best work, right? It's all up to how the leaders. So tips to another good slide to take a shot of, tips to just really, really work as a leader at helping individuals be more engaged. Take into consideration that brain-personality connection and just communicate. Acknowledge, notice them, right? Say hi. I tell people have regular meetings to connect, not just a regular, this is our task for the week, here's what we accomplished, or recap at the end of the week, here's what we did, here's what we didn't do, here's what we need to do, but actually communicate. Spend an extra 15, 20 minutes. Remember all those figures, all those dollar figures? You may say, I don't have the time. 20 minutes is worth $50 million, right? Right? Ask for their opinion, their suggestions. Be interested in them, right? Show appreciation. You know what? That was a great idea. I love that idea. I love that idea. Let's see what we can do with it. You know what? Empower them to find the solution. That's great. I love that. Why don't you do some research on that and get back with me on what you find, and we'll put it to the team, right? That's interest. And then look at yourself. Where are you at? Where are you at? Ask other people, how am I doing? Be prepared for honest feedback. Accept it, be humble, make the adjustments. You might be surprised how much better that makes people feel. The next one, just simply be nice. Literally be nice. Be kind with your words. Beautiful book called The Power of Words by Andrew Newberg. He's a neuroscientist. They worked at Thomas Jefferson University. And some of the information in this book is amazing. He says a single word, one word, ladies and gentlemen, one word has the power to influence the expression of genes that regulate, guess what? Stress. We just talked about how important it was to keep stress down, right? When we use positive words, love, peace, loving kindness, we can increase the cognitive reasoning and strengthen areas in our frontal lobes. Look at what's responsible in the frontal lobes. What did we talk about, right? Reasoning, understanding consequences of actions, problem solving. Using positive words more often than negative words can actually activate motivational. Who wants to have a bunch of motivated workers? Right? Be positive. Use positive words. Right? Researchers at Harvard University discovered that positive words related to rewards, victory, security can trigger oxytocin. Oxytocin is your bonding hormone. This is going to make them bonded to the company, to you as a leader. Just words. But now if you're using a lot of negative words, we got some problems, right? Because you can actually prevent the brain from producing the things that it needs to manage stress. You increase activity and where? The amygdala, right? And it shuts down that prefrontal cortex. So, words have power. Pay attention. Think about, what are you saying? Is most of my messaging positive, or is most of my messaging negative? I'm not saying that you can't give, feedback, feedback to have someone improve, but how are you framing it? Are you including nice things in there as well? So in a recap, keep in mind the neuroscience and the neuropsychology. Remember what their brain-personality connection is. Keep that. Remember, be responsive and approachable. Be interested in what they have to say and in their opinion and their information. And just simply be nice. Just be nice. Say lots of nice things. Any questions? We got just a couple minutes for questions. You're brain dead, aren't you? Guess what? I got lots more brains. I got lots more brains. And I'll be around for a while outside to answer any questions. I also have some great books. My Communication Made Easy book talks about all of the different facets of the brain-personality connection and how to communicate well to it. So you can look at that. And I think this is the slide that you guys need for your CEC credit.
Do you have a business card?
I do. Got them in the back.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Where do you live?
I'm in California. It's either sunny, it's cold, or it's on fire. All right.
Longest training you've done to have this be something that people can employ with?
I do anything, when it comes to this, I do anything from 4 hours all the way to off-sites that are 2 to 3 days. So because there's other facets of the brain-personality connection that we didn't cover that are just as important. And when we talk more about the psychology and the impression on the brain and the mind and all of that, that can get very lengthy.
Very interesting.
Thank you very much.